Hey, what's up, guys? Guerilla Football Denver. We're just talking about how maybe I shouldn't have worn shorts. My legs are very prominently featured here. What's up? I'm Nate Jackson. I'm here with Brandon Krisztal. We're here to talk some Broncos today. And how you doing, BK?
I'm doing great.
Yeah? What's going on? What's going on, man?
So a lot of scrambling. Wife's birthday's next week. Trip out of town, out of the country. Leaving.
Where are you going?
Next Thursday. Cruise for my mom's 75th.
A cruise?
Fly to Florida and then 7 days through the Caribbean on one of the biggest Royal Caribbean ships, like 18 stories.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot.
I just went to Hawaii for my mom's 80th.
Well, congrats.
Yeah, man.
How was?
It was awesome.
I mean, Maui. I've only been to Maui, and it's hard to think that there's much better than that.
It was great, man. I love the ocean. I'm an ocean guy. I got to spend a lot of time in the ocean and in the pool with my son. He's 4 years old. He's learning to swim.
Yeah, it's the best.
Hasn't spent a lot of time at the beach. Didn't want to come home, BK, but I'll tell you what. Happy I'm here. Happy I'm here with you. We're going to talk some Broncos today. You guys talked a little bit last week, and I wanted to jump into this conversation because a lot has been made by Pro Football Focus. Is that what it is?
I think so.
PFF.
I mean,
okay?
PFF is Pro Football Focus.
I like to call them because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about half the time.
It's funny.
And
There's a very big divide. We could just spend time on PFF, but explain why they don't know what they're talking about.
Okay, so PFF ranks and grades players based on tape. And they grade each individual player on a team and their performance. But to understand a player's performance, you have to know what they're being coached. You have to know what the guy next to him is supposed to do. For example, if you think this one guy, the tackle, for example, blew his assignment because the guy ran past him and sacked the quarterback, it may just be that the running back was supposed to stay in and block, and they don't know that, or the guard missed a block and they were trying to protect or cover for their guy. They don't know. Sean Payton talked when he got here last year about trying to evaluate the tape of the Broncos the previous year with Nathaniel Hackett. And he talked about how he couldn't even tell who was wrong and how things went. So if Sean Payton doesn't even know, one of the brightest minds in the NFL, who to blame when something goes wrong, how the fuck is PFF going to know? Your KOA bosses aren't going to get mad when I cuss,
No,
are they?
No, we're not on KOA.
Okay, cool.
No, not at all. The thing with PFF, and it's gotten better, and there's certain people that you ask, like Chris Harris Jr., who's maybe their best-rated slot corner of all time. Certainly when the no-fly zone was doing their thing, he was making all those Pro Bowls, that he was grading out super high every week. Sometimes it's very obvious what your assignment is, right? If it's 3rd and long and you're a left tackle and there's an edge rusher on you and there's nothing clever up front and it's Von Miller coming off, I know he rushes primarily, but Von Miller's coming off against the left tackle, odds are their assignment for both of them is straightforward. Get to the quarterback, block the pass rusher. But other than that, even every interception, and I think announcers have gotten sophisticated on TV to the point where, and there's enough quarterbacks, that it's the quarterback's job maybe post-game to say, yeah, I shouldn't have made that throw. But lots of times the quarterback throws it to where he thought the pass catcher was supposed to be, and the pass catcher blew it. But announcers are
yeah, you also don't know the depth that they're being taught to run the route. There's conversions that a receiver has versus different coverages. For example, if I'm a receiver out wide, I'm supposed to run a 5-yard hitch. If they're in cover 2, I don't run a 5-yard hitch. I convert it to a go. And there's every single route in the route tree has conversions versus different coverages. If he runs the wrong route, the quarterback throws it where he thinks he's going to be, it's blamed on the quarterback. And so it's very hard to grade these guys, okay?
And PFF does it across the entire league for every team, every position group.
Yeah.
They do have an analyst assigned to each team. An analyst that they all have former football backgrounds. I don't know to what level, but I think
Chris Collinsworth is an owner.
Chris
right?
Collinsworth, I think, is one of the main owners now.
Right.
And
well, they started in England. Okay, this guy who started it didn't grow up around football, didn't understand the game, tried to create a system that made him understand the game better.
Okay,
and that's where this started in the UK. You know, when you say football in England, what do you think, Brandon?
Well, you're thinking about the Euros and soccer and
Right,
using your feet on the ball.
So if you didn't grow up around the game, anyway, now you know how I feel about PFF.
Okay, so you're not the biggest fan. I think we don't know what they're grading. They don't know what they're grading necessarily. They have a general idea, but specifically they don't. That being said, they're using their scale to rank everybody the same. So they may be a little bit better with one team than the other, and so the rankings are. But if they say Patrick Mahomes is the 8th best quarterback based on our metrics, and you're like, okay, this doesn't matter. But in general, their rankings are just are similar to anyone
But
else's.
it's also based on the success of a team. Duh, like your team wins a lot, some of the guys are going to be highly ranked. That's not rocket science. So anyway, the Broncos are ranked by PFF the 32nd best roster in the league. That means you're the worst in the league. Vegas has the Broncos winning 5.5 games.
5.5.
There's only two. Well, Carolina is at 5.5. The Patriots are at 4.5, and that's it. That's the bottom of the barrel there. There's 6 teams at 6.5 wins there. So, your thoughts on basically what Vegas thinks, 5.5 wins, and what PFF think about the Broncos roster?
I would have thought with Russell Wilson here the last 2 years they would have hit the over. They definitely didn't in year one. I can't remember what it was last year. I feel like it was 8.5 last year. It might have been 7.5. If it was 7.5, they hit it. If it was 8.5, they obviously didn't. 5.5 feels low for a Sean Payton coach team, even one led by very likely a rookie QB and a lot of young players in some key spots.
So you think Sean Payton is that X factor for
I think he's good
team?
enough for a couple of wins, right? So because Gerard Mayo's never coached, and he may be a great coach, but his team that has probably a similar roster to the Broncos in some spots and is still evolving and developing, 4 wins sounds about right. So if I'm going to put some money down, and I'm very well might on this bet, I'd be inclined to go over. It doesn't mean that I'm going to bet on them to make the playoffs necessarily, but I think that we saw Sean Payton with a quarterback he didn't want running in his version of his offense, dumbed down, not executing what he really wanted to be running for the bulk of the season, still win 8 games.
See, my thing about last season was they were running what they wanted to run. Russell wasn't throwing it where the guy was open and where they taught him to throw it all week. So one of the most frustrating things to happen for an offense is for you, and particularly when you have a quarterback who's not all week long. You put in a game plan. You practice the plays versus different. You got to call. You got to get there, Brandon.
No, it's fine.
This freaking guy.
No
one
can even see me.
That's
now
true.
they can.
Now they can.
So
I can. All right.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, sure.
Multitasking.
Yeah. No, man. So all week long you're putting in a game plan, right? And the coaches want to see these plays versus different looks, different coverages. Here's what we think they're going to do. If they do this, we do this. If they do this, we do this. All week long, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the coach's job is to run you through the different possibilities for each play and to drill you as to where the ball goes if they do these certain things. There's going to be every play should have an answer no matter what they do, right? The answer should never be what we saw this year with Russell Wilson going back and doing the waltz back there for 8 seconds and then dumping it off to the running back. That's never the answer. That was never the answer in practice. But that's what happened on game day. So the plays were there. The guys were open. They saw what they saw, and he should have gone here, and he didn't. I don't think that Sean Payton's offense was necessarily that dumbed down. He just had a quarterback who didn't see what he was taught to see.
When I say dumbed down, I guess muted because the play call is the play call, but there's no way that it was as opened up as things weren't.
When you say opened up, what do you mean?
Well,
deep shots?
No. I'm just saying Sean Payton, I'm going to cite Chris Sims, who – was Chris Sims your teammate?
No.
Did y'all just miss? Oh, because he was here when Josh was here. Okay. Chris Sims, at the Combine this year, I went around to all your national types that would talk to me, former players, national reporter types, a couple of former GMs, whatever, Rich Eisen. But I asked Chris Sims, who I really trust Chris's football opinion, said, but the same question to everybody. How do you fix a Broncos quarterback situation? One question. Got varying answers. Okay. Some people that clearly had talked to people in the building said they really like Jarrett Stidham. I'm like, okay, I get who you've talked to. Fine. Chris said, Russ wasn't as good as people think, even in the games they won. And you don't have Sean Payton to run 9 plays. You have Sean Payton to run 9 million plays with 1 million formations and 1 million different tricks out of it and options and everything. And because he didn't trust that Russ would execute
this is what Chris Sims said?
This is what Chris Sims said. Mm-hmm. You were getting a muted version of what Sean would like to do in a Drew Brees-led world where you've got, and I realize that's your extreme of great quarterbacks, but someone that can run, if there's 1,000 plays in the playbook, he can run all 1,000.
Well, you're never going to run all 1,000.
No, of course, but I'm saying you have access. And I get your game plan's your game plan, but that even that had to be pared down was the sense that I got, because putting in 30 extra plays when he's not going to get through the more basic ones or the ones that are easier to execute, it's like, what are we doing here?
Well, football plays are wordy, right? And as a quarterback, you're the one who's conveying these words to your huddle. And we saw this with Russell the last couple of years, having an issue getting the play through his ear, out of his mouth on time to get you up to the line of scrimmage to be able to run these shifts and motions that are a staple to a complex offense like the one Sean Payton runs, right? And so he was resistant to put the wristband on.
Tom Brady wore a wristband
that
for
whole thing.
Right, well, let me ask you, somebody who played with a bunch of quarterbacks just in your life, how when your quarterback had a handle on the play and was efficient with getting the call not only from the play caller but to you guys quickly, especially as receivers when you weren't a tight end and you were a receiver, but even if you had to get going quick.
Oh, yeah.
How much of a difference does that make, even those 1-2 seconds? And they're knowing that, no, they're calling the right play. It wasn't, wait, did they get that right? Yeah.
So you get 40 seconds, right? The play clock is 40 seconds long. But like I was just saying, in the modern NFL, shifting and motions are really, really important, and often both a shift and a motion.
Especially in Sean Payton's offense.
Yep, and it's the Shanahan stuff too. I mean, really any kind of modernized, offensive-minded coach wants to do that.
Right.
Why?
Andy Reid's doing it, obviously has been for years.
Yeah, why do you do that? Why do you do a shift? To make the defense show their hand.
Right.
You put a running back, make him split out wide right out of the huddle, and based on who goes with him or who stays.
Linebacker, safety,
if
corner.
The corner stays out there,
they're
it's
in
zone.
Yeah.
And then he comes back down. Then he gets set. Then there's another motion. All these things are, not perfect indicators, but are supposed to give your quarterback. It's supposed to give your quarterback an idea of what they're going to do, so where you want to go with the ball. If you don't have enough time to do that, everything gets, squeezed. You might not even have time to run the motion. You're hurrying through it. And also the defense, we saw this with Hackett, the clock goes 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Everyone knows you're about to snap it, and they can jump the count.
Right.
You can't use the snap count.
Right.
You can't go on 2.
No hard count. No,
right.
You're right. None
and,
of that.
And so you're not able to game the line of scrimmage. When we look back at what Peyton Manning was able to do, and just be at the line of scrimmage for what felt like an hour, right?
Yeah.
Just standing there.
And he's
saying a bunch of gibberish, pulling a bunch of words out of his ass. A bunch of prepositional phrases that didn't make any sense, and we're just trying to get these guys to be confused, and then I'm going to do a dummy count, and then they're going to show what they're going to do. Then I'm going to run the real play. And when you milk the play clock so long because you can't get the play in, and some of this was on Sean Payton, by the way, first year back after being out in the media booth for a year, admittedly he had an issue with his eyes, right? And he's trying to squint and read the play. So there was some communication issues, but Russell didn't help that.
Well, and it's funny you bring up Peyton because it kind of takes us back to the PFF story and knowing what the play call is or what someone's assignment is. Because I will go to somebody that I know you played with, Dominique Foxworth.
Yep.
And he told a story on ESPN radio years ago talking about Ed Reed. And it's the same play that people have seen a million times that Bill Belichick gushes over when they did the top 100 and Bill Belichick and Rich Eisen and Ed Reed, and I can't remember who else was with them. They're at the Hall of Fame, maybe Collinsworth. They're at the Hall of Fame, and they're talking about Belichick calls it the best play he's ever seen a safety make. Foxworth told the story prior to this video that they would get together when he's in Baltimore at different DB's houses, a lot of times at Ed's, but sometimes they'd watch tape together every week. And he said they knew that Peyton and Reggie Wayne or Marvin Harrison, I can't remember, really loved setting up the out and up or a wheel route based on what they do early, getting you to bite on that, especially trying to get the safety down, and then obviously sending it that way. So early on, they run the out, and what they had decided was, okay, you're going to be all over the out no matter what. Make a play, don't make a play, whatever, and I'm going to even make it look like I see that coming to set up the out and up. So then when they think it's coming, they get the right look. Foxworth intentionally stays, I can't remember, and we'd have to go back and watch the play, but either jams or slit, whatever, and the up looks like it's there. And Ed Reed's on the other hash and even stepped this way, so Peyton thought he was going to Peyton's right. He wheels all the way, he physically spins, runs, and makes this crazy interception that Bill Belichick says is the best thing he ever saw. But Foxworth, almost as a decoy, had to bite.
Yep.
There's no way Pro Football Focus knows any of that. They're like, oh, well, the corner missed the jam or whatever it was, and Ed Reed made the craziest play ever. Ed Reed did make a crazy play, but it was all set up by Foxworth baiting Peyton, and so that goes to knowing everyone's assignment. But Peyton at the line of scrimmage thinking, oh, Ed Reed's all the way over here. There's Foxworth again in the same spot, so we're going to try this. Is he going to bite on the out again? or whatever. And
Russ wasn't doing any of that last year.
No.
And that's a chess match between, two Hall of Famers there. And you got to throw the underneath stuff on time early in the game to set that stuff up. And Shanahan was the same way. We would run a bunch of slants to set up the sluggo, which is a slant and go, or the thunder to set up the lightning, which is a 5-yard hitch and go. That's what you do in the first half with quick passes. That's why quick passes are important. It's kind of funny how the knock on Bo Nix in college was he threw too many quick, short passes. That's part of the NFL. That's what the NFL, I heard a stat recently that the 4 teams that threw the shortest most often last year in the NFL.
Chiefs,
Ravens, Niners,
Rams,
and Lions.
Oh, Lions. Okay.
No, the fucking last four.
The last four in the thing.
Yeah, the four remaining teams.
Yeah.
That you have to do that well, and then you got to break tackles because defenses in the NFL are giving you everything underneath. Those are your completions. Those are your easy completions. And Russell couldn't do that. He couldn't throw the ball on time. He couldn't get the ball out of his hand. Russell was the slowest quarterback to get the ball out of his hand in the NFL, and he threw the shortest. Go figure. That's because he's dancing around, and then he dumps it to the back. That's not the type of system that Sean Payton wanted. That's why I say, the dumbing down is one thing, but it's just the simple, on-time throws to your guys when they're open, coming out of their break. That's what Drew Brees did very well. You remember when Sean Payton took over in New Orleans, his first year there.
06.
Yeah, he was the coach of the year that year.
Right.
And Drew Brees was in the MVP conversation. So things happen fast for them, right? And they're not happening as fast here. But now Russell's gone, right? Ding dong, the witch is dead, Brandon.
For $83 million, that's all it cost you.
Yeah, no big deal, right?
Not my money.
And now we've got a quarterback competition, right?
Yes and no. It is an open competition. Jarrett Stidham can go win the job. This is something that we talked about on the show on Monday. Jesse and I went over. Stidham came into the league behind Tom Brady. He wasn't taking his job in New England. He obviously had a chance at the end of his time in LA, or in Las Vegas rather. Got on the field a little. Vegas wanted him. The Patriots wanted him. The Broncos also wanted him.
Yeah, he wanted to get the stench of Josh McDaniels off.
I get it. And so, but I'm saying even with Josh gone, they still were. Oh no, the math isn't right. Yeah, so Josh wanted him back. He comes here though, and I'm sure it was explained to him exactly what we're seeing. If things don't work out with Russ, we want you to have a chance here, and we think you can get us through whatever that is, or if Russ gets hurt. And then even if we did draft a young quarterback, we think that you can have the job for as long as you think you can keep it, right? So he has a chance. And Zach Wilson, you were out there at the practices we were allowed to watch. You see the talent, but you also see that he's a bit of a mess right now and just is going to need more quarterback rehab. But I talked to somebody, and I mentioned this too, that I really trust that isn't necessarily as invested in Bo Nix that's in that building, and was told, quote, that MFer can go. And that came on the
Quote,
heels.
that MFer can go.
I'm paraphrasing.
What do you mean by that? What does MFer stand for?
Mother fricker?
Fricker. That's what it is.
And there's nothing stopping me from saying, the quote was, it was either that motherfucker or that bitch can go. It was one of those.
Bitch can go.
It was something. And it was said to me more than once, and I was like, okay, this is someone.
So that means he's good?
Yes. Okay. This is someone, and this came on the heels of, I mentioned Chris Sims. Phil Sims was on KOA a couple weeks ago, and he goes, if you want somebody that's going to bash Bo Nix, you came to the wrong place. He's like, I think he's as good a quarterback coming out, getting to the second read as I've seen in years. And the reason that matters is because of the way modern NFL offenses work, and knowing even really physically talented quarterbacks like Russell Wilson couldn't necessarily always get to that second read or where they wanted the offense to progress. And Bo Nix, apparently that's something that he thrives in or thrives on.
Yeah, really hard to evaluate the quarterbacks thus far, my opinion.
Sure.
Because they're getting drilled into their head every day to basically make the safe play. There's not a lot of balls being pressed down the field in practice, right? They're all trying to please the coaches and do the thing that is most efficient. That's the right thing to do. And 60% of the time in a game, that's the right, you do that. But the other side of the coin in a game is the plays you make off script, the plays you make, when things do break down and things aren't going right. And in practice, especially without pads on, you're not really seeing that, right? So Bo Nix's experience is what got him here. His adversity going through, 2 different colleges, it not going well at Auburn, and then putting up the kind of numbers he did at Oregon. Sean Payton talked about how the knock against him that we just talked about wasn't really accurate or fair. Even in intermediate throws, he was the best amongst all these quarterbacks that were coming out. And so I actually do think Bo Nix has a chance to be the best out of all of them. He was my guy from the start. You know, when CU played Oregon and you saw those two guys on the field together,
you're like,
it was quite clear who the better quarterback on the field was there, right? And if Shedeur Sanders is being considered like a possible first pick in the draft, Bo Nix is a better player.
Certainly understands all facets of the offense and what the quarterback's job is in terms of being able to execute.
And he's going to do the things that Russ couldn't do. So I think Bo Nix is going to get the start. I think he should. I think he should start the season off, and let's go with
get the
Bo.
start or win this, because I feel like he total package is the best of the three quarterbacks. Zach Wilson is clearly the most physically talented. Stidham is just more experienced, and I talked to him at Senior
You mean
Bowl.
physically talented, like has a better arm?
Just physical, just better arm, and probably runs a little better than. I guess we'd have to double check the times.
Yeah, hard to tell. I mean, I think it's I mean, he's an athlete, but so is Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix in his junior year at Oregon had like 14 touchdowns on the ground.
Yeah,
so he can run.
Yeah, right.
And you don't really want your quarterback to be doing too much of that.
No, you want him to run the way Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes run.
Yeah,
right. Run to get first downs. I don't need you to run the way Lamar Jackson runs. I don't need you to run the way Kyler Murray runs,
or like Russell Wilson.
Or and that's the thing about Russ is, you could say he was, prior to Patrick Mahomes coming along, who is kind of rewriting every quarterback, best to ever do it. Russ really was the best off-script quarterback we've probably ever seen. He threw 292 regular season touchdowns in 10 years in Seattle. That's not an accident. That is God-given talent that's allows him to run around and then make the right throw and the right play. But Father Time's still undefeated, and at some point catches up with him. But in terms of wanting to stay on time, and it's funny when you talk about these short passes, go back to reading the book, The Blind Side, where they prominently talk about one of your most important figures in your life, in Bill Walsh, when he didn't have a lineman that could handle, when he's in Cincinnati as a play caller, couldn't handle big-time rushers. He's like, well, we have no chance of running to the outside, and we can't drop back. Let's just throw the ball to get the 3 yards we were going to get, or 4 or 5 yards we were going to get on a normal run play. And that's basically how his West Coast offense was developed. And the really good offenses still incorporate it to take the stuff underneath, bring the defense up, and then take the shots when they're there.
Yeah, we talk about vertical pass game a lot. That West Coast offense is a horizontal pass game because you get the ball out of your hand quick into the guy's hands with room in front of him and lanes to run. And so it's an incredibly important part of Sean Payton's system, Kyle Shanahan's, the West Coast system as well. Okay, so are we in agreement that Bo Nix is going to be your starter?
Yeah, but let me go back to, and I want to throw this question at you. In Chicago, they handed Caleb Williams a job because there's not even a Jarrett Stidham or a Zach Wilson there, right?
Yeah. Who is the backup in Chicago? Who's the next quarterback?
I guess it's that kid that we saw play when Fields was down last year.
The dude with the dad who's
the arm wrestler dad.
The arm wrestler dad.
The Bajent.
Oh yeah.
One of them's Tyler and one of them's Tyson.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one's the quarterback and which one's the arm wrestler.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think he's the backup there still. But you understand why Caleb Williams is the starter from day one. And in certain situations, it could be like that, right? But then when you talk, and Sean Payton mentioned, when Patrick Mahomes came into the league, he had Alex Smith behind him, right? Or Alex Smith in front of him. Aaron Rodgers had Brett Favre. Jordan Love had Aaron Rodgers. Tony Romo, I think, had Drew Bledsoe, right? Guys that sat for a while and then finally got their chance. You still don't have that here.
You don't think Stiddy is?
No, but I do think Stiddy is your number 2, and that's what's going to make it interesting.
Someone's saying Nate giving the Sharon Stone and Basic Instinct treatment.
I think cross your legs over
that's a lot. That is a lot.
Seductively.
I probably won't wear shorts on this show anymore.
I literally
just kind of up my crotch.
Look, it's 90 degrees today, but I just bring pants now after the very first time I sat in these chairs.
Tuck them in there.
And look, you have very athletic legs. You were an NFL player for a long time, and I think weren't you an accomplished swimmer as well?
I was a swimmer.
Yeah. And I'm built like a soccer player. No one ever is like, oh, your legs are too skinny. They say the opposite. Nonetheless, I think pants is the way to go.
Yeah,
just leave pants here.
Lesson learned.
Just leave a pair of jeans here.
Yeah, I should.
But don't you want to see Bo Nix win the job? Not just say, hey, he was our number one guy.
Yeah.
I think he will. I think based on everything we know, I think he'll win the job. And I think it's going to be a really interesting test for Sean Payton. You say he doesn't like rookies. Well, look at what he does with the rookies at the other spots. but knowing that he'll get even a little more leeway by having the rookie from the jump, because there's going to be growing pains.
It's going to be interesting too. Like, okay, so Bo Nix obviously is going to be on this team. You only keep 2 active quarterbacks, probably, right?
You put Zach Wilson on practice squad.
You could.
Because he can do whatever he wants. He's getting his $2 million.
Or you cut him, My question is, what do you value in your backup? Because if Bo Nix is going to be the starter, you probably want Jarrett Stidham as your backup.
100%.
You don't want someone like Zach Wilson who's prone to just like get all squirrely and make some critical mistakes. You want someone to come in who can run the system, right? And be a placeholder until your starter is healthy again.
And I think be a valuable sounding board to your young quarterback. That's something that Jordan Palmer told me, going back to his brother, who backed up John Kitna for a year, loved having Kitna for those next few years there. Patrick Mahomes has loved having Chad Henne and then Matt Moore and now Blaine Gabbert. He likes having guys that have been through years and years of just meetings and practice and game weeks and been a starter some. But you can't put enough. That's why Chase Daniel was in the league for so long, and that's why I think Jarrett Stidham is going to be in the league for 14 years, just like Chase Daniel. But I don't think you feel great if Jarrett wins the job and you're like, oh, Bo Nix still needs more time to cook, because he's not coming in the same as some of these other young quarterbacks that might come in with what Zach Wilson have, a year and a half worth of starts. Or
he's got like 34 starts.
No. I'm saying coming out of
college.
BYU. Or like
he had nothing.
Right, Cam Newton had that year, and that was an amazing year, and Cam was fine. 61 starts is a lot of fucking starts anywhere, and to do it in the SEC and then in the Pac-12, if Bo Nix doesn't win the job, that's where I all of a sudden I'm like, okay, all right.
Well, part of me thinks that Sean Payton would really like to beat the Steelers with Jarrett Stidham. You know what I mean? To show that
Stiddy was the guy.
That he benched Russell at the end of the season for play reasons, because Jarrett Stidham gave him the best chance to win.
I think he'd also like to beat him with Bo Nix and say, hey, my rookie, I just needed my guy to run my system.
Yeah.
And look, I'm in here with a rookie, and I'm beating a playoff team, maybe the best coach in the NFL, this side of Andy Reid, I guess, because the rest of them all have one ring that have rings.
Yeah. Well, so let's just say, for the sake of the argument, that you are going to start a rookie quarterback, and you're going to start this season with a rookie quarterback. The best thing to do for a rookie quarterback to take pressure off of him:
run the ball
and have a solid defense, right? PFF says that this Broncos defense is their weak spot, is the weakness on the team.
They have some weak spots on the defense, but I'm going to take exception.
Where do you see those weak spots on the defense?
The other linebacker opposite of Alex Singleton.
That's a question mark.
Big question mark, and I think that's something that that's why they keuld signing these linebackers, right? They're signing guys from the UFL. They're signing tryout guys. They're signing a guy from the Falcons that has played in 40, 50 games over the last few years or whatever it is. And so they like Jonas Griffith's talent. He's been injured and then kind of lost his job and got injured when Alex Singleton really came on with Josie Jewell 2 years ago. I go back to that Jacksonville game where they were in London where they're trying to rotate all 3 of them. That was kind of the only time they were healthy, and then Jonas got hurt. But it was like, okay, you have to have Alex Singleton on the field. That concerns me. And then you got rid of 2 veteran safeties, Kareem Jackson clearly at the end of his rope, but from a leadership standpoint, vocal in practice and keeping that back end together and understanding where everybody needs to be, you lose that. And then Justin Simmons, he didn't accidentally have the most interceptions in the last 8 seasons in the NFL. And you saw when he was on the field versus when he wasn't, say, against Miami, and how guys lined up. So your 2 safeties, we know opposite of Patrick Surtain's a question mark, but somebody is going to win that job. I'm less concerned to some degree. But your other linebacker spot and how the safeties perform, which is likely Brandon Jones and P.J. Locke. But those are big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that the defense is going to be the strong suit
it
on this team.
It should be, just like last year.
Yeah, I mean the edge rushers are promising. Had some pretty good moments last year.
You see that. You just want them to stay healthy, but you see the explosiveness from all of them.
The interior line got better, a whole lot better.
Yeah, I think JFM's on that list. Like Derek Wolfe was on a list of best players to never make a Pro Bowl. I think just in the history of the league. JFM is on the list of active players, best active players. Like when the Jets played the Broncos last 2 years, you flip the film on and you're like, well, this dude looks like best guy not named Aaron Donald or Chris Jones. Like how is he not in the Pro Bowl every year?
Yeah. And I agree with you on the back end. Safety is a question mark, but at the same time, getting the veterans out there who were the leaders on bad teams can be a breath of fresh air and allow organically some new leaders to take over. The corner opposite Pat Surtain is always going to be an interesting position because you're going to get a lot of action.
Well, and you saw that. I talked about Dominique Foxworth. You played with Darrent Williams, but Champ Bailey was on one side.
Yeah.
So you saw a bunch of different guys throughout your time as a player, and then obviously just following the team. With what we saw from McMillan last year, and they kind of, I don't say lucked into a player, but what he's become for a guy that's undrafted and in year 2 plays, he's maybe their most consistent defensive player. How concerned are you? And talking about Sean Payton not liking rookies, I don't know if that is on defense as well, but if all of a sudden Levi Wallace wins that job, who has 40 or 50 starts, including 9 last year for the Steelers, ahead of both Damari Mathis and Riley Dixon, 2 back-to-back third-round picks, then that kind of gives you an idea of how much Sean Payton's influence. I don't know. Give me the vet over there just so I know that that's okay.
Well, you saw Damari Mathis get picked on last year, and there's going to be quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks who understand that, if they're not feeling a lot of pressure, and sometimes that happened last year. I forget who it was. I think it was like Joe Flacco. Did we play against Joe Flacco in Cleveland? No. I forget which game it was, but they were just going at Damari over and over and over and over again. And you got to be ready for that to happen. And so having a veteran.
A Lions game, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I forget who it was. Riley Moss, we haven't seen him out there at all.
Did I call him Riley Dixon? That's the punter? Riley Moss.
Yeah, Riley Moss.
Yeah.
And then.
A lot of Rileys.
Yeah, and then the guy you mentioned, know nothing about him. So.
Well, yeah, except that he played a bunch in Buffalo and started 9 games for the Steelers last year. Okay. But he has like 50 starts.
Yeah. So Jaquan McMillan in the slot.
You could tell by the way George Payton talked about him because I asked him about corners at one of the draft press conferences. I was like, so, we're going to keep asking, but how do you feel things are with corners? And he's like, well, obviously we love Pat. And it might have been leading up to the draft. He's like, and J-Mac in the slot. And you're like, okay, well, that's all you need to know. Like, J-Mac in the slot means it's basically his job unless he falls off a cliff. Yeah. And that's okay. He played well enough to be the returning starter.
He's making plays in the backfield, making interceptions, causing fumbles.
And Sean Payton, I think, brought this up on the last day of minicamp, and so I don't know how much you tracked all of those comments, but because I asked him, I think, just to evaluate the rookies as best you can, and he said his favorite thing is that these guys, he's like, it doesn't always happen like this, but we had a lot of picks, and guys that we had higher grades on were available. He's like, so the receiver, 2nd round grade, they get Troy Franklin in the 4th. He says, Estime, 3rd round grade, we get him in the 5th. Abrams Drain, 3rd round grade, we get him in the 5th. So in their mind, they're seeing him as a 3rd rounder. So that's 3 years in a row. And obviously, Damari is a George Payton pick, not a Sean Payton pick. But 3 years in a row, a corner in the 3rd round, in their mind, right, a 3rd round value. So how much is Abrams Drain, who is wearing Justin Simmons number 31, at least for now, how much does he factor into the competition? Because that feels pretty wide open.
Yeah. And guys are going to get hurt. It's a long season. Every position has those issues, and so we'll see how the secondary pans out. The competition is going to be good. Competition is going to be fierce. A lot of teams, because of the multi-receiver packages, it's going to be a lot of nickel stuff, and that's only one linebacker on the field, so Alex Singleton will be that guy. He's going to be the green dot guy.
No doubt.
And green dot.
That switched in the middle of the year. I don't know how many people know that. He and Josie Jewell switched or at some point.
I thought they were going back and forth.
Josie, I think, maybe even got banged up, and so it went to Alex. And I feel like I don't want to pick on who it was, but one of the announcers was a veteran. I was like, oh, he's having issues with his helmet. I'm like, no. They have to switch helmets because he is now the signal caller. Yeah, You've called 1,000 NFL games.
Yeah, the green dot means that you got the speaker in your ear, and the defensive coordinator, whoever's sending in the play, is sending you the play, and you're hearing it, and then you're dictating it to the rest of the team.
I think from about middle of the year on, it was Alex's.
Okay.
Yeah.
It used to be like someone was on the sideline doing like their whole freaking sign language thing, and then you would give it to the team. Now you can actually hear it. So that's Alex Singleton. It shows a lot about what they think about Alex Singleton, and I think he's one of the biggest badasses on the planet, Alex Singleton. I mean, I think, people got on him last year about, like, the penalty against the freaking Texans with what's-his-face, the quarterback.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, to me that was super lame. Alex Singleton, he's a
glue guy?
No, not a glue guy.
Because he's beyond that.
No, he is the pace setter.
Yeah.
He is the spark plug. He's the energy on your defense. This
And
guy
he's
is
always around the
everywhere.
football.
That's what I'm saying. He's everywhere. Yeah, and glue guy. I mean, you need those guys as well, and he's probably that as well. We're not in the locker room, so we don't really see the dynamic there. But no, he is your tip of the spear.
Well, and he and Bo Nix are hanging out, at least the two of them at Zach Bryan concert together.
Is that right?
Saw that in
That's cool.
in a friend of ours, Eric Bradley's Instagram story.
Oh.
They were together backstage,
Wow.
checking out. Because Zach Bryan seems like everywhere he goes, we saw both the Chargers and Rams were on stage with him. No Broncos that we could see, but Bo Nix and Alex Singleton, your quarterback on offense, your quarterback on defense, just hanging out, just being pals
And
in a
that's-
time where they don't need to be here. I mean, Alex lives here,
Yeah.
but they don't need to be here right now.
And that's not like that doesn't happen all the time. I promise you, Jay Cutler wasn't going to concerts
He and Al
without
Wilson.
Wilson. I promise you that.
They were going.
No,
No.
they weren't. And so that bodes well for the Broncos going forward, that these guys are coming together as a family, getting along well. We're going to be here at least twice a week going forward, and maybe even more.
I
BK?
I think more as we get closer to the season feels right. We'll
It
see.
does feel right.
We'll see. I mean,
man.
right? There's a lot to talk about with this team.
Yeah.
We are just scratching the surface.
Just scratching the surface. We'll see you guys next time. Guerilla Football, Denver. We're out.